we are faced with a deadline to deal with the requirements of the ARP funding. Failure to act would forfeit a significant amount of fire funds. My response, any evening after 6 works for me. Why did we split that up and put a meeting, the next meeting 8 o'clock in the morning, knowing I couldn't be here? Why couldn't you do that all at night, the same night? Just curious. Can you give an answer to that?
I don't have an answer for you.
Okay. Okay, the other thing, other old business, employee evaluations. Shoot. I did receive a letter from legal. I did receive a letter from legal in regards to doing employee evaluations. And they bring it out of, it's out of Anna, what's her name, Anna? It's from her. But she came out and she responded back, pulling the quotes out of our employee handbook. And, you know, the township administrator is to be evaluated annually by the township trustees, and we never have done it once. Goes on to say, as a board, the date and time of evaluation can be set, most likely in an open meeting, unless a motion to go to executive session is made under blah, blah, blah. This evaluation is required under the policy, so the board can act together to force the meetings and blah, blah. We need to do an employee evaluation of our township administrators. The reason why you two don't want to do that. I'll give no answer.
Well, he's under contract for one.
It doesn't matter, he's still an employee, and we still do employee evaluations. It says in the handbook to give an employee evaluation every year. We've been told by legal that we need to do this, we need to do it. We'll put it on the agenda for next week in the open meeting. It says she's suggesting we can do it in an open meeting.
So you want to evaluate an employee in an open meeting?
I'm just going about what she said. I'll do it in the executive session. I don't care, it needs to be done. Put it on the next meeting's agenda, please. We'll do an executive session and do the next meeting. As far as legal counsel for Mr. Wolf, I do not see anything in the policy that prevents him from bringing his own legal counsel. It would be unusual for the township to foot the bill. I would advise that the board not agree to that either. Because before, in one of the responses, Steve Wolf asked for legal representation, and it was implied that we, the taxpayers, were going to pay for his legal representation. No. And we've been told by legal not to do that. So I request that we put employee evaluation on executive session. That's the way you want to do it. The next meeting, we did an open meeting, how are you going to do it? We put it on the next meeting.
So how long have you been ready to do this?
I've been trying to do this for 3 years. I keep getting reasons why. He gets sick, things happen. It's never happened. I tried to do this, and it keeps not happening. Not occurring.
Mr. Mann.
Okay, well, I'm not prepared to commit to a date tonight.
Of course not.
So,
Of course not.
Mr.
She never does. Go ahead.
Go ahead and put it on the meeting or next week in executive session.
Thank you.
any other old business?
Yeah, talked several times, and we have told the residents of this town we're going to open up Station 59, and we do desperately need to open up that station. But it is their suggestion that that bid needs to go back. It's over $50,000 now, and per Ohio Revised Code, per our own resolutions and our own township paperwork, it's over $50,000 needs to go back out to rebid. They're suggesting to us that it goes out to rebid. Our legal counsel is telling us to go out to rebid. That Station 59 project needs to go out to rebid.
So explain to me, number one, the change orders are what put that over the $50,000 threshold. So how do you rebid a job that's almost complete? Explain that to the.
Explain to me how it's almost complete. Last time I was in there's no fixtures up.
May I make a comment on that? We don't have a contract. I have no contract on the records where you have in a contract, so how did you even start the work? There's no signed contract. If you had one, you never provided it to me. So you started work without a contract, and now you're trying to argue the point about a rebid or?
No, you refused to cut the PO.
No, there's a PO, no, it couldn't have been, refused.
That was awarded and approved.
It was no contract received on that. If you have
Well,
proof, please present it to me. You're just going on what you believe, but I have nothing.
Okay, well.
I would
since
like to
you
see
brought
the
up-
paperwork.
I think, Mr. McLaughlin, your issue is not opening the firehouse, which the residents of this township, our levy money was contingent upon opening that firehouse. You're not interested in opening that.
Yes, I am.
No, you're not.
Yes, I
Otherwise, you
am.
wouldn't
Yes,
be
I am.
arguing and dragging your feet.
Yes, I
you
am.
are, sir.
No, I am. No, not. That's your opinion. You're wrong.
You have fought this
I'm
project
not.
tooth and nail from
I'm going to
day
do it the
one.
legal way. How can you take a bathroom, take one bathroom, and you make it two bathrooms? It comes in at a bid of $16,500. We start doing it ourselves, and all of a sudden it came out to $48,000. How can you justify that much of an increase to our taxpayers' money? Oh, we're going to do it through the COVID money. You knew that wasn't going to happen. See,
What's funny about it?
it's not, nothing's funny about it. It needs to be. I'm laughing at Steve photographing me. Yeah, I'm doing the same thing. I put mine on social media too. You can put it on social media?
Nope.
Yeah. Do whatever you want to do, but how can you
Why don't you
justify?
pull up a picture of the house that's burned to the ground across the street from
What's that to do with it?
If we had a firehouse, that place would probably still be standing.
If,
No.
how would you know that?
We do have opinions again.
Okay?
Because I'll answer that, that house would be standing.
That
How
house
do
is
you know that?
standing.
You got
Because the
proof?
amount of time it takes to go from 60 clear out there, and then you
have
go
nothing.
right across the street. You don't know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
I
I'm
do
the
know. How you gonna
firefighter.
tell, you don't know what you're talking about. You're a defunct firefighter, actually. And you've been set up for charges being a firefighter. So now keep on with me and tell me I don't know what I'm talking
Those
about.
was
And I'll
dropped.
keep on going
Trustees,
with you.
those was dropped.
It doesn't matter. if
You
you
know
don't-
what you're talking
Oops,
about. Settle the meeting.
Mr. Wolf,
oops,
nobody's talking to you.
oops.
I wouldn't talk to you, I was
I
talking to the
don't
president of
care, and
trustees.
I'll continue talking. Because you're not in Jefferson Township. You don't care about Jefferson Township. All you want is our money.
Oops.
Well, let's go back a little bit. For the last 3 years, Station 59 has been a facility residents enjoyed using. That was the home for our yoga.
You can't use it now.
You have, we originally tried to save money by doing this in-house. That didn't work out
You stop.
because Mr. McLaughlin ran the job and there was no permits or codes met on this and the job was stopped. Once I established with the previous fire chief that he wasn't following building code. a lot of the delays on this project have had to do with, number one, finding a copy of the blueprints. Number two, getting engineering to get this ADA compliant. ADA compliance was something that was not recognized in the initial run at number 59. So the change order has to do with bringing in ADA compliant. Okay. My big problem with this is all this arguing and fussing. The community gave us fire money to staff a firehouse, to have fair wages, competitive wages, and to keep our buildings and equipment current. Once upon a time, that building didn't even have insurance on it for 5 years, and we had to backdate insurance and pay for a premium just to take care of a roof claim on that. Now, whose fault it was that we didn't pay insurance on a building for 5 years? Trustees, this whole proceeding is a joke.
What proceeding?
Get on board with fighting fires in this community or step down. This is crazy.
Just need to do it legally.
That's all.
And then we can-
You are just stalling. You've got a problem with, you've got a problem with CG Utilities doing the work. Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
You fought them on helping us out every inch of the way.
No.
Yes, you do. You've got a problem with Chip
No,
Gadsden.
no,
Yes,
no,
you do.
You're wrong.
Get the control of your meeting, as Mr. Wolf said.
You're wrong.
You have a problem with
No, I do
CG.
not. No, I do not.
Okay. So, you're a liar.
You look in the mirror, dude. You and that man over there, you look in the mirror. Hi, Steve. Put that on your recording.
Pot called the kettle black.
Okay.
Anyway, the 459, the legal says it needs to go out to rebid, and I just clean that up, it needs to stay legal, it needs to go out to rebid. So that's old business. Maybe that's one of the reasons that our people in this department just pick up the phone and call legal service that costs us money. Steve Wolf does it. It costs us money instead of using our free legal. At home, you use what is free. No, let's just spend the taxpayers' dollars and call Joe Blow legal. It costs us money instead of calling Nathaniel. Oh, Nathaniel won't give us the answer we want. So we'll call another legal term. Fine.
Well, Mr. Man, the ball's in your court. What are we gonna do with Station 59? Mr. McLaughlin hates the contractor and doesn't want it.
No, I don't.
Yeah, the commentary, Jefferson's commentary.
I'm just, all I'm doing is, you asked the old business, all I'm just bringing up the fact, we were told by legal that the needs to go back out to rebid. That's all I'm stating.
All right, trustees, can I make a statement?
Sure.
All right, so the legal did not have all the information at the time of that email, and so I suggest that you trustees meet as soon as you can in executive session with the legal, all three of you, and listen to what the legal has to say today. That's all I'm saying. And if it hasn't changed, then you go with whatever you have to do. If it's changed, all three of you will hear it from legal. That's my suggestion.
This was just the 30th of last month, this is less than a month old.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
There's a lot of information they did not have at that date.
That's common with a lot of decisions they make, because they make a decision on only thing what you tell them, and you don't tell them the complete story, so that is very true.
That's a false statement, Mr.
Well, one of the questions I have with legal is somewhere out of nowhere, there was a $16,000 figure thrown around. That was never discussed in the meeting and not when we talked about the bids. It was Bilbrey and CG Construction along with Simply Renovations, the folks that did the work on the firehouse previous. So,
What was discussed was there were 3 bids given.
there wasn't 3 bids.
But that's what.
That's,
so
we had the
that's
minutes of
what-
the meeting,
That was told in a previous meeting, there was 3 bids, and you'd have to talk to our Assistant Chief Wilcox to get those bids, because he was the project manager. I have that in the minutes.
Trustees, I want to correct the record for those that have not said facts. You ran an RFP. You ran the RFP for remodeling this building. You ran the RFP for remodeling Station 59. You remodeled, or RFP for 60. You ran an RFP for tree services. You ran an RFP at the same time for vacuum or sewer cleanout. Those were all done at the same time. You got one bid back. It was All-American Home Improvements. You decided to use All-American Home Improvements on this building to start. And you know what happened with that mess, so you did not go on with the second bid. So you did receive a bid from All-American. Then the second time that you went to bid, we all said, we're going out to get quotes. And at the time when we went to retrieve them, your assistant chief said, at that time battalion chief, said he couldn't remember who he met with, except for one, and that's Bilbrey. And Bilbrey was over $50,000. So so I went out and got bids, one bid, and that bid came in under 50. You do not have to do anything under 50. Now, a project that's under,
Yes, you do.
a project
Yes,
under,
you do.
a project
Go
under,
ahead.
a project under construction, that's already under construction, that was voted on and approved in a public meeting with resolution signed and a purchase order request signed, is a contract. Your contractor right now is working on the project. They have expenses into this. They've got the expense of the architect, the expense of pulling all the permits. Now, I'm going to tell you about something that did not happen with the former, whoever was involved in all the prior projects. There's no certificate of occupancy on the firehouse. No one should be there right now. No fire truck should be in there. Because nobody got a certificate of occupancy from the county when it was built. If due process would have been followed last year by many, you would have found out there was no CO. But you had All-American bid, you had Bilbrey, and you had C&G. The other two, or three, you have to ask the assistant chief exactly what happened, but he can't seem to remember. And if he comes up with numbers now, that's quite interesting. That's misleading. And that was sent for that request to him and his chief to provide those numbers for you trustees in a public meeting. And they were never released. So as of today, your contractor is working off of your resolution that you had asked for a PO to be issued, and it had not been issued by the fiscal officer. You originally thought you could do it through CARES Act, and it's now decided that you could not. But fire department money was encumbered in your 2021 budget for this construction anyways. So the money is in the budget to pay C&G. You have two issues here. One, your legal counsel doesn't have all the information that they need. Number two, you have a construction company that's already working and pulled your active permits. You're going to owe them money. You're going to owe them for everything that they've done so far. And then, if you decide to switch vendors, you've got to pay more. The process was followed correctly, but there's some funny behavior going on here which makes no sense at all. But the day that that house burnt, that man came and saw me, his son's house. He come across the street the next day and he saw me and he says, what is going on with this community? And what am I to say as an employee? What is chief to say? Other than, we've been trying for 5 years to open up 59. When Chief Sexton went in and ripped out the bathrooms and never fixed them, never had any budget set up to do it, and then part of your next chief was required to open it up as part of his job, and he didn't do it. Then we get a group doing it for whatever amount Mr. McLaughlin says that was not approved by the trustees, no permits pulled, and it failed plumbing. If they would have covered that floor up and that plumbing, we would have had to rip out the entire floor. So I'm asking you trustees to meet with legal counsel, cut this crap out, and find out the facts instead of innuendos and half-truths. Because today, these folks here have no coverage. And if I had a heart attack in one of their homes, and I died, and my family knew it, and you guys didn't do anything to get that station open because whatever's going on, we got a problem. Mr. Mann has been trying, and so are you, Jim, trying to get us to get that station open. You never appointed a project manager to be responsible for it. That's not in any records because you didn't do it. Then you have a bad situation. So I'm asking you to meet with legal as soon as you can to solve this issue. Thank you.
So who, does it have a certificate of occupancy now?
Nope.
And who's responsible because you don't have a
The
certificate?
township,
Okay, so why is there nobody working for a certificate of
they
occupancy?
won't issue it until you get this project done.
So your point about certificate of occupancy is mute.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Board of
Because you can't
Trustees.
get one.
Board of Trustees needed to know that you don't have one on your
It's a
structure.
mute, it's a mute point.
So you've been operating in that building since the day it was
Can't
built
get
without a
one, it's a
certificate.
mute point.
Thank you.
Trustees, you don't want to work out of that building, you don't want to do the necessary repairs to make it viable. So what's next? Sell it? Right now, it's just storage.
It's not supposed to have, according to what Steve just said, it's not supposed to be storing vehicles in there either.
Correct.
Well, thank God we had a contractor that knew what they were doing and could sort all this out for us. Any other old business, trustees? We got items on the agenda that we covered in the work session. I don't see a need to revisit that unless you trustees want to come back to that here.
What are we talking about, the tax bill?
No, that's going to be in new business and resolutions. Take a minute to look at that and not move on. Any other old business, trustees? Okay, I'm gonna move on to.
One here. I'm curious if this is a conflict of interest. Here is a picture of the firefighters associated, assigned to Liberty Township Volunteer Fire Department. And the assistant fire chief is Doug Wright. The fire chief is Mark Lloyd. Mark Lloyd is the salesman for fire apparatus. Is that a conflict of interest? Do we need to ask legal about that?
You asked them.
Hmm?
You asked them.
I'm not asking you, I was asking these two over here.
I apologize.
I have no comment.
You have no comment, Mr. Mayor? You see that?
That has nothing to do with the agenda of this meeting, Mr. McLaughlin. How is it old business? Explain to us how
This
this is old business.
this is an interest to the community, and I think it needs to be brought out. Let's make sure that we all.
This is the same issue you brought up at the time that Mr. Wright was hired by the township. So why didn't that come up then? I guess you're tipping your hand, you don't like this fire chief and don't want to work.
What's your agenda?
I'm just curious if this is a conflict of interest.
I haven't been on there for several years.
What was your resignation date?
Don't answer that question, because
Don't answer that question.
he's doing HR
You
work.
just took-
He's doing HR on the floor, and he's not allowed to do that. Trustees?
It's violating your rights as an employee.
Yeah, violating the rights of the
Just
employee
sit there.
handbook. Trustees, I would advise you not to make comment.
They're really funny.
So everything has got to be ran through the lawyers. Trustees can't make their own decisions or draw their own.
That's
conclusions.
what
Well, you have no room to talk.
Or the decisions at the meeting.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Really?
You guys can't make your own decisions. But that's, legal told you several times.
Well, maybe we should elect our
At least-
lawyers next time
At
around.
least when I use legal, I use free legal. I'm not picking up the phone and calling legal that costs us the taxpayers money.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Can we get to new business and people to speak, please? Because this is getting tiring.
You have to remember, this is a trustee meeting, and they only allow you to speak. So they don't have to allow you to speak.
Trustees, any other old business? All right, moving on to new business.
Finally.
Let's go ahead and take care of, Ms. Edwards has given us appropriations resolution approving 2021 transfer of funds totaling $8,800 for tax collector fees. This is resolution 21-074.
Like to make a motion.
Well, what happened to 3?
Huh?
What happened to 073?
This is,
He said 4.
Oh.
73, my bad. All right, reread 21-073, approving the 2021 transfer of funds totaling $8,800 for tax collection fees. You made a motion, first motion?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution 073.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mann. First question I have is, why can't we take care of the appropriations we need for the grant money that we discussed in the work session and knock that out here also?
What does that have to do with this resolution?
Well, this is a transfer resolution.
This is for tax collection. You have to do a resolution like this for that. Yes, you do have to do one of those.
Okay, any discussion on resolution 21-073, trustees?
I mean, if you want me to further answer that question, I can.
I guess what I'd like is walk us through what these transfers are from the fund codes. You set this up, so explain the movement.
Okay, so, that's gonna be hard for you to understand, but, the auditors have a certain way we have to account for our tax collection fees in their audit report. And if they don't see it accounted like that, we get money in and they take money out. Our final amount is the difference between those two that we get into our account. The tax collection fees are, I gotta do a lot of complicated, calculations, in order to get the exact amount for tax collection fees. They give us, I'm making the number, for the general fund, they give us $28,000 in one payment. But part of that $28,000, it really could be $32,000, and then the difference of 28 and 32 are the tax collection fees. I'm making up numbers, these aren't exact numbers. And then that's what I have to account for. We have to account for that in our budget at the beginning of the year. And I had that in the budget at the beginning of the year, but you guys cut it down. If you see in my resolution, I had it at 25,000. Mr. Mann suggested it go to 10,000. And then I had to raise it again, twice. This is the second time I've had to raise it.
Trustees, can I have a comment?
Good.
Tracy, I have a question for you first.
Okay.
These are the collection fees they charge us to collect our taxes for all our levies, right? Okay, trustees, these bills should be paid by all funds.
Yeah, I just used the general fund as an example.
But this transfer only involves two funds, so I didn't see any of this document before today. There are tax collection fees that are the greatest for the fire department because it's the largest millage. And there's none being taken out for this expense.
Yes, there
And
is.
then there's also the expense of collecting the sheriff's levies.
That's in there too.
Uh,
Mr. Wolf, at the beginning of the year, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but just so you don't have to go through this. I did that at the beginning of the year for the fire and the sheriff and the road and the general. They had enough money in there. The general had the money in there, but it got cut down when we were going over the budget. All that was done, it's in there, you just, it's 311 or something like that. That line item, 314 in each line, in each fund, it's 314. The lighting district also has an amount. All, the lighting district, the sheriff, the fire, all of them have that amount.
The other thing, thank you, fiscal officer. The other thing I point out is the fund code for chosen by the fiscal officer first and put on this transfer. They're a salary basis, and I'm not sure that you can transfer salary for a non-salary appropriation. I don't know that answer. I would defer to the legal counsel on that question before you make that critical mistake. That could be a mistake, it could not be. But the attorneys need to let you know what you're allowed to transfer out of. Thank you.
So this is related to the cleanup of the audit?
It will be if we don't do it, but it's not, this is for this year. They haven't done the audit for 2021 yet.
Trustees, I recommend we table this and get more information and double check the numbers on everything here.
Okay, again, if you wait, you won't be able to use the funds that we've already been given by the county. I won't be able to put it into the budget, so your budget is gonna, your numbers are gonna be wrong.
Well, we've got a first and a second.
And I won't be able to do the bank reconciliation for the end of the month, and it's gonna put everything behind, and we're gonna have real problems, and we will have an audit issue.
Okay, well, we've got a first and a second on the issue. We can always vote it out. If it doesn't pass, we can always come back to it down the road.
Well, also I'd like to say that we can always change these numbers when you do that. We can go ahead and accept this and do the transaction, and then when you find out what code you can legally do according to Mr. Wolf, then I can always